Welcome, everybody, to today's Building My Legacy podcast. I have with me today Daniel Stafford and Robby Switzer with Shopanova. They are an exciting e-commerce company that knows how to scale and build a business in the e-commerce arena. So before we get into what you do, how you've gotten about doing what you're doing, tell us, how did the two of you meet? What are you doing? And how did you get to this place?
Go ahead, Rob. Start us off.
Yeah, so this is a good story because it's a very unconventional way to get started, and especially in e-commerce. So we're both from a small town in Alaska. We live in Homer, Alaska, and our background is actually in manual labor and commercial fishing. And so we spent a majority of our young adulthood doing this type of work. And so we both have stories of, going out fishing in Alaska, and we both made big investments into owning our own operations. And I'm going to try and summarize this because there is a little bit of a story here, but I actually ended up marrying Daniel's little sister, and that's how we ended up getting to know each other. But Daniel, why don't you tell them a little bit about your big experience on the boat and how that kind of led you into starting a different company?
Yeah, that sounds good. So we both bought boats kind of around the same time as we were starting families. I'm like, oh man, I'm a father now. I have to get my own boat, my own business, so I can provide for my family. Our first child was on the way. So it's kind of a stressful time, like building a business, getting married, having a kid on the way. So I bought a boat. Season was going great, but about midway through the season, we actually capsized the boat. So we had a lot of fish on board, got really rough out, and we were going with the waves. And whenever you go with the waves on a big seiner, you kind of surf down them a little bit and it can turn you hard over at the bottom. And that's what happened to us. We turned our hard over and the boat just like rolled in one wave, and we were all inside the boat. And luckily we all survived, but there was still that scary moment of, waiting for all the crewmen to pop up and everyone, to, surface, and thank God they did. But in that moment, I'm like, man, there's gotta be a safer way to make money, and I just spent all my life savings on it and like built it up and then just capsized it, and lost a bunch of money. And that gave me this realization though, of like, I don't have to go risk my life, just to make money for my family, even though that's kind of what I grew up doing.
So we were good friends through this process. And of course I was falling in love with his sister. And we were just having these conversations around, like this specific lifestyle suited us for a long time because you could go out in a few short months and make a pretty sizable amount of money. And then you have a lot of freedom outside of that in the off season of commercial fishing. And so when we were young, we'd go fishing and then maybe make some extra funds to do something really cool, like go and travel. He actually, a little fun fact, when he was, he's been fishing with his dad since he was super young. He built his first house when he was 18 years old. So all these really cool opportunities, but then like he said, when you get married and you have kids, that lifestyle just no longer suited us. And so about that same time, he had read the book, Think and Grow Rich. And it just planted this idea in his head that, there is bigger possibilities than what we even know. And for us, we live in such a small town and everybody does the same thing. And we saw that as kind of like our future. It was really hard for us to wrap our head around, doing something different. But we did both read that book, and through several conversations, we said, you know what, let's just go for it. Let's try and do something different that's maybe a little less risky. And it was all kind of motivated by this idea that we want to just spend more time with our families, have a little bit more freedom and a little bit more safety in the work that we do. And so we started a video production company. And then the long story short here is that we did everything we could here in Alaska to sell as much videos as possible. And this whole time as we were doing that, we were always asking the question, well, what is the value of what we're bringing to our customers? Like if we make them this video, maybe they'll go and they'll post it on Facebook or Instagram, but is it really like doing anything for their business? And really wanting to answer that question of how we can really take what we're doing to help our customers kind of led us down this rabbit trail of, figuring out how to use a marketing asset and run a paid ad strategy. And now that's what we do as a service provider for e-commerce brands, is we run paid strategies. And so now we don't necessarily make the videos, but we run all the paid strategies. And so over the last 5-6 years, it's been this really awesome journey of learning how to do that, getting involved with mentors to teach us how to do that with the utmost excellence, and scaling several people in the e-commerce world, and really making a difference in their lives. And so it's super cool to look back and reflect on that journey, because if you would have told me we were going to be here today, maybe 7-8 years ago, I don't know if I would have believed you. But there's a lot of like little things in that story that we learned along the way that would take quite a while to unpack, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of in a nutshell, how we became an e-commerce growth agency.
So your biggest learning during that time, I'm fascinated by your story. What was your biggest learning?
There's a lot of them. I think for me was changing my belief system to what was possible. Like you said, we read the book Think and Grow Rich, and of course there was learning lessons, from rolling the boat and everything. But one of my biggest learning lessons was that you can make your dreams come true. There is bigger possibilities. You just got to believe them so much so that you basically pull it into existence. So that's been a huge one that I learned back then. Like you said, we grew up in this smaller town where it can be a lot of limiting beliefs and stuff. And I know a lot of people have been caught up in that. So just breaking outside of that and realizing, there's actually bigger things I can do. It's possible for me. I believe it's possible for everyone else if you do change those belief systems.
Yeah, I guess for me, my biggest learning lesson was just, it sounds so basic and simple, but just this idea that, the people that we really look up to and we see doing great things, at the end of the day, we're all people. And, some people have learned other skills that maybe we haven't learned, but it doesn't necessarily make them more qualified or better. And so our journey, there's a lot of people who say we're the most unlikely success story. And I feel like that narrative gets tossed around. But, I do look at us stepping off the commercial fishing boat and saying what we're going to do. And if I saw myself doing that today, I would feel sorry for that person. I'd be like, there's no way. But just having, pairing with what Daniel said, this idea that we actually do have a belief we can do this. And then just recognizing that, the people who are doing great things that we look up to and admire, they're just people. They have their own stories, their own learning lessons. And eventually, time is on your side. You build the skills that you need, and you just keep making more and more progress. And now we're at the point now where we look back and we look at our client base. We've generated our clients over $100 million. Just a couple, kids who were out commercial fishing, and now we're running this agency, and we're actually providing real money, real wealth, and that gives the business owners that we work with to the opportunity to hire people to go and do meaningful things in their own lives. So I guess for me, the biggest learning lesson is just that, the people that you see as big accomplishers and leaders in the industry, they're just people, and they just have maybe some things that you don't know, and you can learn all that if you really stick to it, I guess.
Well, you've done well, because you were saying that you have now grown your office to about 8 people. You have 30 overall, placed in different locations. So that's remarkable in a very, very short period of time. I want to get to one of the things that you talk about, that one of the skill sets that you have, or one of the gifts that you've given people, is taking a company from doing $10,000 a month to $1 million a month. So tell us about that. How does that happen? What's that journey? Because there are a lot of people that would like to know that.
Yeah, that's a great question. And obviously that's not all on our end. A lot of it depends on the client and their ability to scale their business, because we focus so much on sales and marketing. But what we've seen for that client specifically, what worked really well is they're doing a lot of live selling. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but you
Please explain. Yeah.
you go on Facebook Live, and basically it's a lot of these boutique owners, and they're just pulling out clothes, trying them on, telling about them, giving their audience a live experience. People join live. And when they say, like, see something they like, they'll comment on it like, yes, I want that red blouse. And it sells it right to them. And there's this whole back end built in. When someone comments, it's all built in to just sell it to that person and ship it to them. So it's a really cool system. And people like to just gather around, drink some wine, and have fun, like watching these girls try on clothes, and like, it's like this whole experience, kind of like going to the mall, but not quite, because it's from the comfort of your own home. But that works really well because Facebook loves when you go live on their platform. It starts giving you priority, and it builds a great community around your brand. So this particular client, they were doing that really, really well, had a great audience, and we just came in and pretty much dumped fuel on the fire to what was already working for them. And we started adding paid advertising to that. Their following, their audience really blew up. And then we built out, a lot of retargeting stacks. I don't know if we want to get into the nitty gritty of that, but basically we put a lot of ad spend behind something that was working really well. And over the course of, I think, 8 months, 6 to 8 months working with us, they had their first $1 million month, which is pretty significant growth for any business in any industry.
Typically what you'll see is with online stores and specifically like online boutiques is there's people who are really, really good at, building a brand, getting a following around them. And this is, people who maybe have prior retail experience. Maybe they run a brick and mortar boutique and they just really know how to connect with their customers. They even have a little bit of salesmanship, like person-to-person sales. And so this live selling system that Daniel's talking about, it takes the power of person-to-person sales, and it pairs it with the scalability of e-commerce, because we're basically taking two very awesome skill sets and marrying them together. So as he said, they're going live in the Facebook feed, and now their audience isn't just people coming into their store; it's everybody who's potentially interested in their product that's on the internet. And so their viewership goes way up, and that's a really good place for online stores to be starting. But that can only get you so far. And then the piece that we kind of brought into the puzzle is taking those videos and interjecting it into a paid ad strategy, and then amplifying that to other locations and in front of other audiences. And so then now, instead of, maybe, 100 to 200 people viewing these live videos, now there's people nationwide that are all tuning in, and they're having this exhilarating shopping experience because there's, maybe new clothing coming in, and they're just really excited. And it's crazy what these online stores are able to do, how much product they're able to move just by having this live shopping experience. And I think with a lot of people being at home, there's a certain level of them, with the pandemic and stuff, there's a certain thing that they feel is missing when they're not able to go to a shopping mall or go into a store. And so it actually is very community based, and they just really enjoy that thing. And I think where people are finding enjoyment, they're finding value, that only leads to success in business. And so that was a special recipe for them. Like Daniel said, it's definitely a team effort. And that's also doesn't happen for everybody. Some people, they had quite a few building blocks in place where they had the ability to scale. They had access to inventory and even some capital to be able to purchase inventory at large rates as the customers came in and bought. So that was kind of like the perfect storm. It worked really, really well for them. But for anybody, even the people getting started, there is a very specific process to building your store and building your audience.
So have you done that same scenario with the live Facebook shopping, so to speak, and combined it with brick and mortar shopping? So a person might do both and do them simultaneously. Does that work? I'm trying to think about all these retail stores that have suffered through COVID, and where are the possibilities for them to come back and to find vitality again?
So my head went to the exact same place that yours did. And for the longest time, we've been just an advertising company. We only run paid media. And so I've been really wrestling with that idea too of like, what about all these people who either don't have people coming into their store or they're not even allowed to open their store. Like, how can we help them? And there was always this piece where, potentially those people would reach out to us and ask that same question. And we'd say something along the lines of, we need to have, your website built in place. We need to have the infrastructure there for you to be able to do this. And unfortunately, we weren't able to provide that. And now it's funny you mentioned that, because we've been chewing on that for months and months. And now we've actually just expanded the scope of what we do to include, building out the infrastructure that's needed. But it does require that, brick and mortar does go and they build the website, they build the online presence, whether that's through the Facebook page or an Instagram shop, something like that. And then from there, you have the pieces that you would need to be able to participate in a live selling paid ad strategy.
And they got the perfect setup because they got all the inventory. They got the customer base that already knows them for a good starting point. It's just a matter of them setting up a little studio, being able to go live, try things on, like the boutique. Like, we have a lot of clients that do both, that started in brick and mortar background and said, let's take this online. And it blew up when it went online, right? Because you just have access to so many more people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's the perfect case scenario for people that are still shut down or struggling from COVID to make this transition.
Mm-hmm.
And we're only seeing e-commerce grow at like an incredible rate right now. So a lot of people are making that transition. And now, like Robby said, we can help them with that, from, shooting their content for them, building their website, and then adding the paid media side to it.
It's funny you say that, because we just gave the green light on that in our leadership meeting yesterday, and the email went out today that, hey, Shopanova now offers the creative services, whether that's filming and video or the website development, all of that, in addition to just our bread and butter of running the paid ad strategies. So yeah, we'll see how it goes as far as taking somebody who literally has none of that, but we're really excited about it.
So here's something you can add to that will give it a little bit more spice. And
Okay.
that is, there's a company that I'm aware of, and I know there's many, but one that particularly that I know of that does fundraising with wine and fudge and different things like that. So people who come and purchase a certain percentage of that could then go to a cause of their choice. But she makes sure that the wine is there for the fun of trying on or doing things. So there you go. I'll connect you.
That's a great idea.
I love it. That is some extra spice. I like it.
Well, I think more and more, and you can speak to this better than I can, it seems that people want more and more of an experience. And as you were speaking, the other place that came to mind is the whole restaurant business. Is
Mm-hmm.
how can you take what you're doing, combine it perhaps with home cooking recipes, bars that could share recipes, but put some fun with it. So you can get back in business when you've been shut down.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the day, it all just comes back to, the basics of a business, and that's providing value in a way that's relevant to people right now. And I think with the pandemic, what is relevant has just changed so fast. And so everybody's tried to figure out, how to make things work for their own businesses, whether you're a restaurant owner, a brick and mortar boutique, a clothing store, any of those things. And it's just really trying to figure out how to be relevant right now. And with the necessity to be a little bit limited in human contact, the nature of the beast is that a lot of people have just had to figure out going online. And so it's been really, I guess, an honor to be somebody who can help people with that. So
yeah, and you're totally right. People want an experience, and people buy from people. What's so cool about live selling, it's such an authentic, real experience. And they get to see someone that they like and trust try on different clothes that also likes their style. And they're like, it's just an instant connection there. We're like, yeah, I'll buy that. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty fun to see.
I think you have a great idea. And I think part of what makes what you do so successful is you didn't come into the business the normal way. So you're not limited in how you approach things. You come at it from a very out of the box way of looking at things. And rather than looking at what can't be done, you look at, oh, wow, we haven't tried that. Let's try it.
Yeah, that's a good point, I guess. I never thought of it like that, just because we don't know any better. So we're figuring it out as we go. And yeah, you're right. The possibilities are endless. So that's a good way to look at it.
I appreciate you saying that too, because a lot of times, those same things that you would maybe view as a strength were insecurities for us. Who's going to hire a couple guys who, don't have a background in this kind of thing. And I think the mentorship was a huge way that we could break past that. And then just developing, good case studies and validating results, that was really good. And then once we kind of had that locked down, there was a lot more trust. But yeah, for a lot of that, those were things that we didn't always share. We were actually embarrassed about for a little while. So I appreciate you saying that's, potentially a strength. So thank you.
Yeah. So often what is our strongest suit, we hide under a bush because we don't recognize it. It's so normal to us, and we're afraid that it won't fit into the standard box, right?
Yeah.
And what people are looking for is something that's not standard.
Yeah,
Totally. And that's so good, because over the years we've learned to share our story now. In the beginning, we were trying to hide it. Like, people aren't going to want to hire an agency from Alaska, but now that's like that's the funnest stuff to talk about on podcasts, and our clients love it and everything. And we've really owned it. And it's made a big difference for us, just owning our story and being proud of it, and now putting it out into the world.
And encouraging our clients to do the same. I think a lot of people who are starting online stores, one thing, one of our guys, Patrick, who has been here since the beginning, he does sales for us, and he was actually on the boat with Daniel when it flipped. He comes across a lot of prospects and people running their store, and he has this saying that, they're trying to be their best impression of like a faceless corporation. And that's not what's going to help them sell. That's not what's going to help people grow. So really getting people to own their own identity, the uniqueness of their brand, and putting themselves out there, because in a live video, there's not a lot of, hiding who you are. If you're going to be standing up and going live for 20, 30 minutes, showing people your garments, and I think that's why it works so well, is people connect with that authenticity. So it's cool to have kind of seen that work for us, and then encourage our clients to do the same.
I think it's wonderful. I want to ask one other question that's really just plain practical. And that is, how much money should people invest in their e-commerce marketing? Is there a formula that you follow? If you want to be successful, is there a formula for what one should invest?
We don't have like a set formula or percentage, because it depends on your revenue. And also a lot of people that come to us are, have funding outside of their own e-commerce store, that they're able to they say, hey, I want to just scale it as quickly as possible, or they're maybe looking to flip it in a year or two, and they're just trying to grow the revenue. But we get a lot of people too at the like $15,000 to $20,000 a month range that aren't really spending anything. And we tell them we need to at least start off with $3,000 a month spent on Facebook and Instagram, just to validate the funnel, validate our process. And from there, once we say, hey, we're giving Facebook $1, we're getting $3, $4, sometimes $10 back in return, let's start ramping that up. And from there, it's just a matter of how quickly can they grow? How much inventory can they get? Can they scale their warehouse? And then we have people, spending over $100,000 a month, where I don't know if they don't necessarily have a set percentage of their revenue going to marketing. They're just basically same thing still, like, how many new customers do I want? How quickly can I grow? So it's hard to say like a set percentage to set aside. But I say in like the $10,000 to $15,000 range, we say at least spend $3,000 a month for your store.
Yeah, and I think one of the misconceptions we hear, because we actually get that question quite a bit, and typically when somebody asks that questions, and not saying this is the case with you, but they're looking at starting an e-commerce business as like this little hack or this little side gig. And it's still a business. And just like in any business, in the very formative, maybe the first 1 to 2 years, you're going to be investing a lot into that business to get it up and off the ground. And then once you do have proof of concept and you do have, just your product validated, your customer base dialed in, all of that, then you can kind of switch into more of a model where you have specific targets in your P&L, where you're saying, I'm spending this percentage in advertising, this much goes into new inventory, this is my labor cost, all of that. And that's just so, relevant to, the uniqueness of the store. And at that point, that's when you need somebody running your finance to help you come up with those numbers.
Yeah.
But I think the big takeaway is that to do this well, it's not just like you don't, the people in e-commerce that we feel are going to hit a plateau really quickly are the ones that are just trying to do the bare minimum, get a site up, maybe source some products from China that really don't have anything to do with their own brand or the uniqueness of themselves. And that's all they ever want it to be. In that case, you're just going to be able to grow to a certain level and no more. The people that we work with are the ones who are really looking at it as a full-time business and willing and ready to make that investment. And sometimes the first 1 to 2 years is, you got to invest quite a bit to get it up and running.
Yeah. And so we are marketers too, right? So we're trying to push people to spend as much as possible without breaking their businesses, because at the end of the day, there's only kind of two metrics that matter. That's your cost per acquisition and the lifetime value of your customer. And so if we dial in a good cost per acquisition on the front end and they know their LTV, so say we're spending $20 to acquire a new customer into their business, and that business owner says, okay, that person's going to buy from me 4 to 5 times over the next year. So the LTV might be $200 or something. So if they understand that up front, we want to scale as quickly as possible to grab as much market share as possible, because then they're building their email list. They can launch new products to their existing audience. And it's kind of this snowball effect it has. So we try to say, spend as much as you can without breaking the business to grab that market share.
Great advice. And you know what? This has been so fascinating. I love your perspective, and our time is almost up. So what have we left out that you would love to have the audience know or think about as they think about their marketing strategies and e-commerce or life or business?
One thing I just want to reinforce, I guess, really quick is people that were shut down during COVID, brick and mortar stores, I'd encourage them just to jump on and get online and use COVID for you. I think things happen for us and not to us. And I think you can use it for your business too. We've seen so many people make the transition successfully, and it's changed their lives for the better. So I want to encourage people to do that and jump onto that and believe that they can do it. And then also just circling back to me 7 years ago when I read Think and Grow Rich. I don't know if there's anyone listening in the similar phase where they're just kind of in the mundane, maybe boring job, something they don't love, and they think they're just stuck there. I just want to say to that person, like, they're not stuck there. They can make their dreams become a reality. It's not always going to be easy, but you just need to change your belief system to believe that you can become what you want to become and do something great.
Yeah. And just caring about other people. I think that's what makes businesses work. If you're going out there really trying to make a difference in somebody's lives, the success in business will follow. All of this, like the amount of customers you bring in, the amount of revenue you bring in, all of those are lag indicators to you doing the lead work. And that's just showing up and providing value in people's lives. So I think if you have that at the forefront of what you're doing, sky's the limit.
So having a belief, being willing to shift your belief system and pushing yourself, and then focusing on people. I love that philosophy that you both have. So thank you so much, Daniel and Robby, for being with us today. And for those of you who are listening to this podcast, we will have information about Shopanova in the show notes. And please feel free to contact them. If you have any problems getting a hold of them, let us know. We will be glad to connect them with you. So thank you so much, Daniel and Robby, for being with us today. And thank you for those of you who are listening to Building My Legacy podcast. Thank you for being with us, and visit our website at buildtomorrow.com and our social media sites as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us on.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for watching my video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell button above. Leave comments. We'd love to hear what you think. And visit our other social media links as well. Thanks much.